So, there's a theory going around for two specific characters. As the title would say, does Al equal Subaru? Is Aldebaran Natsuki Subaru? What evidence is there that makes this theory sound solid and not like a trippy video or a trippy theory? Well, I, Green Warrior 291, shall present the evidence as shown from the stuff like the anime, the break times, an if story that still has my attention to this day, other things like a specific side story, the day I gave up on being a following star, and some stuff related to their looks from the wiki. Let us begin. So, something I want to mention is the looks. When it comes down to how Al and Subaru look, they obviously aren't the same if we're looking at them side by side. Al looks like a big dude with one arm and a helmet, while Subaru is, well, Subaru. This is where we have to wiki to let us know on certain things, such as these two apparently are 5'8", to which I kind of feel odd since that's my height without shoes. Now, they both have black hair according to the wiki and black eyes, to which the anime had changed Subaru's eyes to brown, which I'm curious if they're going to do that for Aldebaran. But, continuing on, this is interesting since, well, in the looks department, that's kinda suspicious though. Then again, they could have both been from Japan and just so happens to have similar traits. Look at fucking Dragon Ball with literally a bunch of Goku copies. Not excluding people who are literally Goku, just stole his body. You have a bunch of that shenanigans.
I don't think I'm supposed to be here.
So it could be a bit of a coincidence, but it is a bit suspicious for a story like this. In the departments of their names, Subaru's name in Japan means Pleiades star cluster, to which is a gathering of stars. Aldebaran's name in Japan means the follower star. That's not a coincidence, especially when you have like the Sin Archbishops that happen to have names related to stars. So we know that with Subaru being the gathering of stars and Aldebaran being the follower star, it's meaning that there's some connection with the two. Not to mention the side story of the day I gave up on being a following star, or how Yen Press calls this story, the side story, as the day I stopped being the Aldebaran star. We have Al stating that he followed Priscilla, like at the end of the story, because, as he would say, this world is designed to operate in the way that works best for me. It's interesting that it's a similar line to what Priscilla said back in season 1. Now, the funny thing that needs to be considered is that Priscilla is known as the Sun Princess, so the sun is also considered a star. I find it odd that the story of the day I gave up on being a following star would have him follow another star, unless you consider that when his name is researched, it's considered a red giant star in the constellation Taurus. Now consider Subaru's name, Pleiades star cluster, and its definition of a star cluster in the constellation Taurus. Now, we are getting somewhere. With Al as the Aldebaran star, no longer following the Pleiades star cluster Subaru, Natsuki Subaru. I honestly think Tappei wouldn't just name these characters with their given names without giving it some thought on their meaning. So there's definitely a connection between the two, for sure. Also, on the topic of stars, it's interesting that Al, whenever battling in that said side story, he mentions a phrase, "Your stars were bad." The fact that he is using stars, and in the OVA of Memory Snow, Subaru had spoken about the constellations and stars, and having knowledge about it. I wonder, do they share the same knowledge on stars? Almost like they are the same person. Also, one last thing before going to the next section. The card here that I'm showing right now on screen, Al's card, with Subaru being inverted essentially, is way more suspicious since it's named Star. Tappei is quite literally teasing us here with these two having for sure some kind of connection. Now, on the anime, although Al hasn't been shown as much, it's interesting when speaking on the whole speech thing from last episode, he was the one against Subaru, viewing the ideals of, if it's the woman I love, I should prioritize her on top of everyone. Essentially going against the notion of being a hero. This made me think, Al could be a version of Subaru that he ended up of only caring for Emilia and only Emilia, as an example, of course. But a fun fact as well, Al was for Subaru doing the speech in the web novel. So it's an interesting change here. There's something interesting about this change specifically. How Al was adamant for Subaru to not do the speech. Anyway, this aside, the way they both act here and in the break time is suspicious within itself. In the anime, his talk with Emilia is her trusting in Al and how he stopped his search for Priscilla to go and deliver the message to Natsuki Subaru on behalf of Emilia. Something that goes directly against his ideals, since he was obviously going to help Priscilla or find her, unless he thought it would somehow benefit his son princess for some reason. Either way, the fact that Emilia had shown trust in Al, and Al basically going with Emilia's plan and informing Subaru, is something to make a note of. But for the break time, although many hate that the information of Al lore was in these two break time episodes, there are many things to explore with these two and the latest one, when I was recording this, of course. The first being Al and Subaru being from Earth. That's nothing too big, unless considering how right after this info was told, Al calls Beatrice Biyako, a nickname that is strictly created from Subaru. One could say two minds can think alike. It's a bit off that, from what I'm aware of, Al hadn't heard Subaru call Beatrice Biyako, from what I'm aware of. This and the way he acts around her, and how he acts a bit like Subaru, is just, honestly, it may sound like a conspiracy theory, but the visual clues are there. How Al obviously looks very dark in this specific image, compared to Subaru, who's all bright and happy, alongside with Beatrice and Emilia, well, by his side, is almost like an odd symbolism of what could be. Subaru happy with those he cares about, while Al is like a Subaru that unfortunately went a darker fate. Oh, wait a minute, that's right. Aga now if. Redemption if. A world where Subaru had instead survived the events of the second loop in Arc 3, and ended up all alone. Since Emilia's dead, Ram is dead, Ram is dead, everyone is dead in the Emilia camp at that point. With Reinhard having come in to stop Puck from going on a rampage. And since Betelgeuse survived this event, Subaru for 20 years had gone after him, donning the iconic Al attire and even losing an arm, which both of them are losing their left arms, interestingly enough. He also fights with a similar looking sword. Like, these similarities are more than just coincidence at this point, where we have to say, is Al Subaru? Is Subaru Al? Also, aside from the fact that someone had managed to figure a way to mess with the screen settings to show us Al's eyes that is suspiciously like Subaru's, with only like, from the looks of it, a scar on his right eye. Now, who the hell thought of this? Because you have to be some kind of nutjob to have figured out this little Easter egg. It makes me think of game theory with FNAF. But anyway, I wanted to add that up because now we have to ask ourselves, is Al Subaru? And there's honestly a lot of points that say yes. And if that's the case, then I'd like to propose two questions. First, how can this be possible? How can we have both Subarus in the same time, I guess, or place? And then second, what does that entail for the story? Now, for number one, I don't know. I honestly can't say, and the one who can honestly tell us is the man himself, Tappei.
話してたんだか知らねえけど、あの様子じゃ
And as far as 2 goes, if that's the case, then we need to consider that Subaru has to be able to overcome an outcome that had left Al the way he is. Unclear what that outcome can be, but for sure we can say that these 2 are on a different path that'll eventually cause them to conflict with one another. But considering Al Tepe has the ability to make us think a certain way and then can easily just change it up on us, I'll just say it that it is 95% sure that there's a connection between the 2, with a 75 to 85% sure on my part, of course, in my opinion, of course, that Al equals Subaru. Though honestly, tell me your thoughts, good viewer, on this matter. Tell me in the comment section below. Like, tell me honestly, what do you think of this? Do you think Subaru is Al? Do you think this is just a nutcase theory, or it's just too coincidental? Or maybe it is a coincidence after all. I want to know your thoughts. And also, please like and subscribe if you like these kind of videos and content. And with that, I'm Green Warrior 291 signing out. Peace.